Well, we're going to have to work on starting the hymn a little better in the future. So welcome. I'm Reverend J. Wolin. It's wonderful to be with you here this morning. I am the settled minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. We especially want to welcome visitors, both in person and for those who are online watching on YouTube. We want to make sure you know you are welcome to participate in any of the events at the congregation, and we invite you to find out more about us. Either if you're online, you can register in our virtual guest book. There's a link on our website. And if you are here in person, right outside the front door, there's a welcome table that you can sign up to get our contact newsletter, which will come once a week, as well as emails with Zoom links for meetings and such. As well, of course, we always have coffee and, let's get this up here a little more. Coffee, yeah, there we go. Coffee and conversation after the service. We do have a couple of announcements today. First, from the Green Team. The Green Team is leading the church's Green Sanctuary Climate Justice Initiative. There we go. Okay. Nothing on the TV in the back, by the way. By concentrating on carbon storage and biological diversity in our soil. How many of you love national parks? Let me get raised. Anybody love national parks? Okay. So how would you like to have a slice of one in our own backyard? We can. There we go. Beautiful. So the Green Team wants to share a vision of the homegrown national park. See the contact newsletter for links. And as well, we're hoping you'll watch the movie The Biggest Little Farm, which is a great movie to share with family during the holidays. I've seen it. It's really nice about how they just transform this farm through the use of natural methods. And so you can watch that on Amazon Prime, and on January 22nd as well, UU Troubadour Jim Scott will be presenting a service, The Year to Save the Earth. And our local soil contest will kick off after that service. And the Green Team welcomes new members as well. Anybody, guests, members, visitors, to participate in our efforts. So you can sign up at the social justice table while you are there, as well as while you're there, you can sign the petition for Florida right to clean water. One other quick special announcement from the auction team. They would like to know what you would like to bid on at our auction. That will be coming up in February, I believe it is. Offer suggestions using the wish list that's in your order of service. I know you're wondering, what is this thing in our order of service? That is what it is. And so put it in, there's going to be a wish list basket that's on the table outside after service in the courtyard. And as well, they have some catalogs to spark some ideas for donations and what you would like to maybe give as well as receive. Okay, now let's all just take a second after all of those announcements. Let's just center ourselves. Take a deep breath. Our opening reading today is from the Reverend Bruce Marshall. We live in many darknesses. We are often uncertain. We are sometimes afraid. We all have sorrows. We have known pain. Each of us carries special regrets. We are sometimes lonely, and the world seems like a cold and hard place. We have experienced as well times of joy and happiness, and have received numerous gifts of the heart. We have known awe, wonder, mystery, glimmerings of perfection in our imperfect world. We come together with our uncertainties, differences, sorrows, joys, and wonders, and may our separate lights become one flame that together we may be nourished by our glow. And so now please join me in saying our words of affirmation as we light the chalice. The words that are in your order of service are on the screen. Ready? As we light this chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we fourth principle of free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It is now with a great honor that I invite up our special musical guest today, Cantor Cliff Abramson from Temple Sinai. Yeah.
You know, there is no easy way to make a transition from a lovely introduction like that to getting the guitar on and make it seem like it was just a beautiful dance. And so I will share with you what this song is. This song is simply called One World, and the chorus of it is very simple. And so if you would like to join in, I would, if you feel comfortable joining in, see what I mean? If you are comfortable, I would love for you to join in. And if you are uncomfortable, join in anyway. What a world I share with you. One world I share with you. What a world I share with you. One world I share with you. For this tiny rock spinning in space, for the stars that know to guide our way, for the promise of the human race. One world is ours to share, for the leaves that fall in the autumn sun, to return once more when the springtime comes, for the rolling hills and rivers that run. This world is ours to share now. What a world I share with you. One world I share with you. Oh, what a world I share with you. One world I share. Oh, so good. And for all who stand, for those in need, in the face of true adversity, for freedom and justice and dignity, and the oneness of humanity, where every voice is heard. One world I share with you. 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 One more time. One world I share with you. 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 I like this place.
Thank you, Cantor. That was so lovely. So every year, we teach our children and our youth about some of the Jewish traditions and their holidays. Learning about and understanding what is important to others and their cultures is so important in building a world of justice and peace. So this week, we are covering Hanukkah. And for those of you who may not know the origins of this holiday, I have a story for you today. And as I was rereading this story, it struck me anew about how it is a story of liberation against oppression, a story that repeats itself even today. So we're going to have the story of Hanukkah by David Adler and illustrated by Jill Weber. The Hanukkah story begins in Israel a long time ago when it was called Judea. At that time, the Jews who lived there were farmers and shepherds. And on the holidays, they all traveled to the beautiful temple in Jerusalem. The temple was on top of a mountain and called the House of God. Its gates were covered in gold and silver, and inside was the Nertimid, a light that always burned. For a long time, the Jews lived in peace, although they did not rule their land. And then a Greek, Antiochus IV, became the king. He was a bit of a despot, and he tore down the walls of Jerusalem, and thousands were killed. And anyone who lit the Sabbath candles, studied Jewish law, or refused to bow to the Greek idols was put to death. So the king's men came to the town of Modin. They demanded that Matthias, an old priest, worship one of their gods. And Matthias refused. He threw down the idol and called out, "Whoever is for the Lord our God, follow me." So Matthias ran to the hills. His 5 sons and many other Jews followed him. Now, Antiochus' army chased after Matthias, but when the soldiers came near, brave Jews hiding behind large rocks and inside the caves attacked them, and then they ran back to the hills and hid. Matthias and his followers were farmers and shepherds, but they fought like trained soldiers. And when Matthias died, his son Judah became the leader. Now, Judah was called the Maccabee, which means the hammer. The people who fought with him were called Maccabees. So the king's armies came with bows and arrows, swords, horses, and armored elephants, but they weren't able to beat the Maccabees. In the final battle, there were more than 6 armed soldiers to each Maccabee, but still the mighty army of the Maccabee beat the army of Antiochus. Judah then led the Maccabees to Jerusalem, and the Maccabees cried when they saw that their temple had been ruined and filled with garbage. So they cleaned it, and they built a new altar, new gates, and new doors. And when it came time to light the Nertimid, they found just one small jar of pure oil left, only enough to burn for 1 day. But the miracle is that that oil burned for 8 days until they were able to prepare more oil. So on the 25th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, the temple again became the house of God. Judah declared that every year on that day, an 8-day holiday would begin. And the holiday was called Hanukkah, which means dedication. So it celebrates the day that the temple was rededicated, and that was more than 2,000 years ago. So today, all over the world, Jews celebrate Hanukkah by lighting candles, singing Hanukkah songs, and eating latkes, or potato pancakes, and sufganiot, which are jelly donuts. Latkes and sufganiot are prepared in oil to remind Jews of the Hanukkah miracles. So that is the story of Hanukkah. Thank you. I now invite our younger UUs to come join us in our classrooms where we will continue a Hanukkah celebration with jelly donuts.
Good morning. We light the Hanukkah candles in wonder, joy, and gratitude, each candle a miracle. When the Holy Temple was rededicated at the time of the Maccabean liberation battle, only 1 day's worth of oil remained, yet it burned for 8 days. So we light the candles in remembrance. We rededicate ourselves to the miracle of light in a season of darkness, to the miracle of trust in a time of anxiety, to the miracle of hope in a time of despair, to the miracle of faith in a time of cynicism. We rededicate ourselves to the miracle of wholeness in a time of fracture, to the miracle of courage in a time of fear, to the miracle of resistance in a time of oppression, to the miracle of peace in a time of violence. And in a time of hatred, we rededicate ourselves to the miracle of love. And now I invite you to enjoy a few moments of quiet contemplation.
Our next reading is from the Reverend Rachel Hayes. In a time that was long ago, in a time that is now, things seemed impossible. Brave people fought and survived, holding close what matters most, creating a future for their children, honoring the lessons of their forebears. They were so tired, but every time their strength almost failed, they found just a little bit more. Surrounded by enemies, they lit a tiny bit of oil to say to each other, "This matters." To say to the ages, "This is who we are." To say to their God, "You above all." They knew they did not have enough oil to last, but still they set flame to the wick. They had come too far to not do so. Everyone knew they did not have enough oil, but the oil did last. One night's oil burned for 8 nights. For God, for the ages, for each other. In a time that was long ago, in a time that is now, people find fuel and dare to set fire to it, knowing it cannot last. But sometimes it lasts. Sometimes it lasts. End of reading. And in order for us to last as a church, to making the impossible possible, we ask you to be as generous as possible as we take our offering. For those online or for those on your cell phone, there's a link in the YouTube video or on our website. And so now let this sacred time begin. Thank you, Don. Always the best. Our next reading is from James Luther Adams, a 20th century Unitarian theologian. There is the possibility of good or evil in existence. Both possibilities can express themselves in human action. Prophetism, therefore, laid a burden of responsibility upon all people. Escape from action to contemplation is rejected as a mode of irresponsibility. Escape from the material for the sake of the spiritual, the renunciation of the finite for the sake of the infinite, constitutes irresponsibility in the face of the divine possibility and command. There is no freedom from the world without freedom for the world. Sin does not derive from the fact that human beings participate in a material world, but rather from disobedience to the divine demand for love and justice. And now, once more, music by Cantor Abramson.
No one actually knew what Judah Maccabee said to everyone once everything was totally cleaned up. But we can imagine what he might have said to everyone if he were living today. When one of us is suffering, we all have feel pain. When one of us is stumbling, we fall again and again. All of us are slaves until all of us are free. Everyone needs sanctuary. When some of us are hungry, all of us can't eat. When words don't mean enough to us, we pray with our feet. We pray for the dreamers who pray for you and me. We can be a sanctuary. So let us set a table wide and long where everyone has plenty and everyone belongs, where everyone agrees to disagree. Underneath this canopy, I will be a shelter open on all sides. I will take you in and stand by your side, no matter where you came from or where you'd rather be. I will be your sanctuary, where everyone agrees to disagree. Underneath this canopy, so stand up and sing, let your voices ring, bring what you can bring, and be a sanctuary. So stand up and sing, let your voices ring, bring what you can bring, and be a sanctuary. So stand up and sing, let your voices ring, bring what you can bring, and be a sanctuary.
What a voice. Thank you. And what a beautiful message that song holds. So starting later this month, people of the Jewish faith will be celebrating the Festival of Lights, the holiday known as Hanukkah. Now, people often ask me, why do the dates of the holiday change every year? And America and most of Western society is on a Gregorian or solar calendar, which is often where the Earth, how many times the Earth orbits the sun. The Jewish calendar is based on the lunar calendar, which measures the time between new moons. And so, of course, the solar and lunar calendars are not equivalent. So in order to keep the holidays in the same seasonal relationship every year, they add, every 2 or 3 years, they add a month to the Jewish calendar. Now, Muslims, on the other hand, do not add a month at all. So that is why you see their holidays will change each year and over time to different seasons of the year. So just a little interesting tidbit, the more that you know, as the public service announcement would say. So the holiday of Hanukkah, I think about growing up, was always a fun time. Historically, in the Jewish tradition, Hanukkah was considered actually a minor holiday. And in the Jewish community where I grew up, Hanukkah was culturally the Jewish answer to Christmas. On the schoolyard, we could laud it over our Christian friends that we had 8 days of gifts to only their 1 day of Christmas gifts. Of course, I did not mention to them that the first 7 days the gifts were mostly socks and underwear. But I mean, a gift is a gift, and I'm grateful for everything that I get. And so, anyway, we celebrated the holiday with a lot of fun traditions. We had the dreidel game. I think I thought I had a dreidel here. I don't know what happened to it. Well, think about it like a top, right? Like a spinning top. Now this is going to bother me. Well, I guess somebody took my dreidel. Well, that sounds like a sermon for another day. Somebody stole the dreidel. Anyway, so it's like a spinning top, and we would spin it, and we would be given what is called Hanukkah gelt. Thank you for putting that picture up there. Anyway, Hanukkah gelt is a Yiddish word for money. And so Hanukkah gelt was chocolate wrapped in like gold foil in the shape of coins. And we would all ante up some gelt, spin the dreidel, and depending on what side it fell on, we would win or lose the chocolate, split the pot, or it would go into the next rollover into the next person's turn. It was a fun game, but looking back on it, I have to admit, like it all seems very strange that they were teaching children how to gamble at such a young age. But it was a joyous time. We were celebrating the overthrow of oppressors. We were celebrating the religious rededication of the temple after its defilement. And we were celebrating the miracle that the light had lasted 8 days instead of the expected 1 day. But mostly, we were celebrating religious freedom. And particularly in the second half of the 20th century, in the specter of the Holocaust, this story resonated with the Jewish people. But like most religious stories, under the scrutiny of closer examination, the answers tend to be much more complex. And of course, remember, the information that we have is quite old and was written with a particular agenda in mind. And I do find it interesting that the story of Hanukkah is nowhere to be found in the canon of the Hebrew Scriptures or the Protestant Scriptures, but it is in the Catholic Scriptures, in the book of 1 and 2 Maccabees. Now, descriptions of Hanukkah are found in the Talmud, which are the Jewish teachings by rabbis written somewhere between the 3rd and 6th centuries. And as we heard a little bit in the story for all ages, it starts with Alexander the Great, who conquered Israel in approximately 300 BCE. And after Alexander's death, the area that he controlled was split up into different kingdoms, and what was Israel is now was controlled by the Seleucid dynasty. Or that's what they're historically known as. And under Alexander, though, local religions were allowed and they were integrated into the Greek customs. And many Jewish people assimilated into Greek culture. However, with successive Seleucid leaders, culminating with Antiochus IV, Jewish customs and services became minimalized and then outlawed, and the final act of desecration was when a statue of the Greek god Zeus was erected in the Jerusalem temple. Now, the stories talk about Jews willing to be put to death as martyrs rather than submit to the Greek religion. And some stories talk about religious Jews killing assimilated Jews. Talks about how a small group of fundamentalist Jews led and fought a guerrilla war against a much larger, better equipped Greek army. In some ways, it is really a story about the clash of cultures, a clash of city versus rural culture, a clash of assimilated, more modern values versus maintaining deeper fundamentalist values. A clash of one group imposing its values and its religion on others. It's an interesting and ironic to think about. This holiday that celebrates freedom, religious freedom, is based on the victory of a Jewish fundamentalist sect over the assimilated Jews and oppressive Greek occupiers who would not allow Jews to practice their faith. So peace could have reigned, of course, if not for the Seleucid Greeks' intolerance and exclusion of Jewish traditions. Of course, if they had not occupied and oppressed the Jewish people, peace could have reigned as well. And there are many theories as to why the Seleucids did not allow the practice of Judaism. Many center around more fundamentalist Jewish religious leaders using religion to stir up liberation, right, against the occupation. And we have seen this throughout history, where religion is used to mobilize for violence. And this leads to the question, is religion used as a means to uphold a sacred truth, or is it used to uphold or usurp power? And I think this leads to a more difficult question as to how we come up and determine what is a sacred truth. Or are truths just determined by who has the most power or the most will? Are we capable of realizing such a sacred universal truth? Or is all truth relative to circumstances and culture? Now, Unitarian minister Theodore Parker's sermon, The Permanent and Transient in Christianity, written in 1841, says, and I quote, "It is hard to see why the great truths of Christianity rest on the personal authority of Jesus, more than the axioms of geometry rest on the personal authority of Euclid or Archimedes. If Christianity were true, we should still think it was so, not because its record was written by some infallible teacher or with infallible pens, but that it is true like the axioms of geometry, because it is true," end quote. Now, Parker was speaking about Christianity, but we can apply those same criteria to any religious idea. How is truth determined? And unfortunately, sometimes we only find out truth retroactively, right? Because we determine truth through experiences, sometimes failing, then analyzing, then experiencing again. And we just continue the cycle as we constantly improve our knowledge, which then becomes wisdom. Additionally, there are things we just don't know and will never know, right? And we have to accept that we may never understand things in our lifetime. But knowing that we may not know doesn't mean we should resign ourselves to stop searching for truth. I am heartened by the thought knowledge and wisdom builds upon former knowledge and wisdom. We have a long history of thinking we know something to be true, only to be surpassed by new wisdom. From Copernicus to Galileo to Einstein's unproven field theory. And now, expanding upon that, we've got people working on superstring theory, which gives me a headache every time I try to read about it. Right? It's all about trying to discover the nature of the universe. And so it should be with religion. What need does religion fill in the life and the role of humanity? Religion has existed in one form or another, honestly, since the inception of humanity. Religion tries to answer the big questions of life and death, such as what is the nature of humanity? What is the purpose of our existence? How do I explain and deal with suffering in the world around me? How do I deal with the fact that I know, I am conscious of my mortality? How do I find meaning in life? And how do we live together without knowing the answer to these ultimate truths? You know, we as Unitarian Universalists long ago rejected the literal interpretation of words written thousands of years ago. But how do we move forward? That's not enough to just reject. How do we move forward? Our religion and its principles calls us to promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It doesn't ask us to accept every word that was written, but to learn from different and diverse sources of wisdom, from new ideas that can build upon the old. And until we find those truths, our principles ask us for acceptance of one another's beliefs. And this has been the bedrock of our religion since its inception. We trace back the formal Unitarian origins to King Sigismund in Transylvania, who in 1568 issued the Edict of Torda, called the Act of Religious Tolerance and Freedom of Conscience. Transylvania, which is now in Romania, was the first country that allowed the Unitarian message to be spoken without persecution. I mean, there were people who were burned at the stake for arguing against the Trinity. So ours is a long tradition of religious freedom and searching. Even our words evolve, right? We have moved from mere toleration to acceptance, and now we talk about ways of creating a sense of belonging, right? Because, or even inclusion indicates that someone's excluded, right? So even our words evolve over time. Nothing is permanent, and we must be vigilant. I am chastened to remember that basic civil rights laws, which we take for granted today, were not always the case in my lifetime and many of yours. And we cannot take anything for granted. The Supreme Court just heard a case this session regarding whether religious beliefs will allow business owners to discriminate against people who identify as LGBTQ. The Supreme Court just removed a women's right to have bodily autonomy. And we have again seen the rise of anti-Semitism from popular figures given a platform at the highest levels of power in this country. We are still battling for our basic civil rights and even for our mere existence, which is why it is critical to have a strong, progressive, religious voice in the community. Otherwise, the only religious voice that will be heard will be the religious voice of intolerance. If we want our values to impact the community, we must share them with the larger community. So I try to think, what injustices today, if we act upon today, maybe our descendants will take them for granted. Maybe one day they will take for granted that every person will be food secure, that every person will be housed, that every person will have adequate health care, that every person will have an equal opportunity to fulfill their potential. I believe all this is a sacred truth. I believe all this is possible. Humanity, though, is not a monolith. Just because I believe it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's not a monolith and will not change overnight. And although we have different cultural expressions as a species, I believe we can discover these universal sacred truths. And until we do, in the meantime, perhaps we can just hope for human decency that can lead to a peaceful and sustainable coexistence. And just like the clashes millennium ago, Today we face clashes in our own culture, including the clash over the values of peace versus war, the values of sustainability versus consumption, the values of love versus hate, the value of interconnectedness versus isolationism. It is our imperative to shine a light on injustice, so acts that are harmful to others are recognized. Now, the menorah, as you see here up front, has the candle in the center, and that is called the shamash. Right? The central candle is used to light the other candles. Right? We cannot keep our light, right, just to ourselves. Right? It's not enough for us just to shine our lights on others. Instead, we have to be the shamash. We have to share our light with each other and others. We have to see the light that exists in others. And we cannot allow others to eliminate our light. We need to be somebody's miracle. We need to have the realization that we can learn much from other people, and that we should not always assume we have all the answers. We should search and accept truth where we find it, within or without, for it is truth that we seek. And similarly, our flaming chalice here, right, is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, of our association and the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And it's something we light every week, right? This is our symbol of the need to live out our sacred truth in the world. And so I thought it would be interesting. I don't assume everybody knows where it comes from, right? The symbol was created by an Austrian artist called Hans Deutsch in 1941. Deutsch worked with the Unitarian Service Committee in helping Unitarians and Jewish people escape from Nazi Germany. So Deutsch was asked by the Unitarian Service Committee to create a symbol for their documents and clothing and quote, to make them look official, to give dignity and importance to them, and at the same time to symbolize the spirit of our work, end quote. So let us dedicate and rededicate ourselves to take the right actions, to do the work, to build the beloved community. It is through our actions that others will see our light and how our light can change the world. Let this chalice light be a symbol. Let the story of the miracle of the lights lasting 8 days be a symbol. Let our internal light shine constantly and have our symbols lead us to acts of love, justice, and compassion. May it be so. I now invite up again Cantor Abramson for our final song.
What the Reverend just said about religious freedom and the ability for us to believe what we believe, no matter what that is, to be who we are, no matter who we are, and to be a light for everyone, begins with us, each individual. The song has a chorus which is all about that. It says, I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. My voice, your voice, every single one of you. I'd love for you to join with me as we sing the chorus. Even now, it's still not easy. I think you will enjoy this, and it echoes exactly what the pastor had to say. I thought it was just wonderful. But here we begin. I will open my eyes. I will not look away. I will use this gift I've been given every day. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world. I will give up myself. I will not look away. I will use this heart I've been given to take a stand. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asanu b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asanu b'tzelem Elohim. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world. I will fight for the truth. I will stand up for what's right. I will use the strength I've been given to be alive. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
So it's nice. My dreidel returned from a different galaxy. Something about that, maybe that is the unified quantum field theory thing I was talking about. Our closing words. We light candles as symbols. We light candles as symbols. Symbols of despair, symbols of loss, symbols of death. We light candles as symbols, symbols of hope, symbols of resilience, symbols of dedication. Even when the candle flutters, even when the candle is dimmed, even when the candle is snuffed out, the fire continues to burn. For we remain, and we remain righteous, and we rekindle the flame, because we are the flame, not the symbol. Please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.